I have no idea when anybody's watching it until they call me.
Yeah, it's live. She's supposed to call you when?
They're ready. She'd emailed me to let me know that they were ready. So they're ready. It's just her getting the email. Technology.
Yeah.
It is amazing, and I also thought all of us would have it better figured out by now. Yeah, that's.
Don't worry about it.
I'm not.
She's not worried about it. I'll worry about it.
I mean, these are public use spaces, so. It would be cool if Luling built like a band practice space at some point. Some places have that, because it can get so loud, you know, and this is all residential. Or if they let people practice at the Performing Arts Center. What I think is gonna happen with that is they spend all that money to build it. Oh, hang on a sec. I can hear you. I just want to put you on speaker. Hey, good morning. Oh. Hi, guys. Good morning. I'm going to try not to look down. I can't see you. Maybe next time, though. But you can see me, right?
Can everybody in the audience hear us?
You guys are the only audience right now.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. Really? When this becomes like a video later, will like people hear us talking?
If Miss Kate and you guys... If you and Miss Kate are okay with that, yeah, I can put it up for other people to be able to learn this stuff too. If you aren't okay with that, I can save it privately.
Okay, so I will check with our camp head and see if there's any rules about that.
Sure thing. Okay, so hi, good morning guys. I'm Becca Hilburn. I am a comic artist. I live in Nashville, but I am visiting my mom in Luling, Louisiana. So I'm talking to you guys from the Luling Public Library. This is one of their wonderful public spaces, which I'm really appreciative that they're letting me borrow it for right now. I have been drawing comics since I was 13, and I've been doing comics professionally for about 10 years now. So today I'm going to show you guys a little bit of my work. I'm going to do a figure drawing demonstration because I heard you guys are working on your own comics, and then we're going to end with me kind of going over my inking supplies and a little inking demonstration. So are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to move the camera. So, I make comics for all ages, and I'm currently working on a watercolor comic called 7-Inch Kara, and 7inchkara.com, and these are the original pages. It's about a little girl who's 10 years old named Kara, and when I say little, I mean she's 7 inches tall. Would you do me a favor and hold the book open while thank you. So that's Kara, and these are her parents, and she lives in the backyard of a normal-sized house. So it's a story about Kara making friends with a kitten named Pancake and a human girl named Naomi. So it's a story about friendship, adventure, and a little bit of cat riding. And this is the first volume. So what I did was I painted all my pages, I scanned them, and then I sent them to a company so that I could turn them into a book. And this is something that anybody can do. So when you guys get a little bit older, if you still make comics, you can make and distribute your own comics if you want to. And I have a little portfolio here that kind of has my comic process. So I wanted to show you guys how I make comics. And let me try to get it so that the reflection isn't so bad. I don't know if that's going to happen. So this is what's called a thumbnail. I don't know how much you guys covered in camp, but a thumbnail is a miniature drawing of the final page that you're going to eventually be drawing. So think of it like a sketch. It's just a really rough sketch. It can be as simple as stick figures, or it can be a little more fleshed out like this here. But the point of a thumbnail is so that you guys can remember the ideas you had as you're working on your pages. Do you guys ever start drawing a comic and you kind of forget what you wanted to do halfway through? No. That's good. I'm glad. I forget. So I have to do things like this so I can remember. It's like a map. And then I take my thumbnail and I scan it and I print it out on a paper and I redraw it so it's much tighter and it has lots more details. So this is Naomi sitting and reading with her cat Pancake. Then I print it out onto watercolor paper, and these are magic because as soon as I add water to this, the blue is going to dissolve away. And I'm able to end up with a final illustration like this. Or like these here. These are some of my finished pages. Some of them are from the first volume I just showed you guys, and some of them are from the second volume, which I'm working on. So I do most of my comic work in watercolor, but I'll also do stuff in pen and ink, and sometimes I'll do stuff on the computer as well. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. What's up? How do I shade the characters? Okay, so with watercolor or with marker, or if you're doing it on the computer, I put down a first layer of color and then I let it dry, and then I use the same color to do another layer of color. So you're gonna get kind of, if you're working with see-through stuff like markers or watercolor, you're going to end up with a darker layer. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. And in between layers, I have to be careful to make sure I leave lots of time for it to dry so I can, yeah. So like here, I did all over the pillow, I did a light green, and then when that dried, I did the same green, and then I mixed that a little bit darker by adding more of the paint, and then I painted in that darker shadow and this darker shadow here. And sometimes I'll mix in darker colors to get shading, and sometimes I'll just use lots of layers of the same color. So like the concrete right here, that's an example of me using the same color and then letting the paint evaporate a little bit so it gets darker, because watercolor is mostly just water and color or pigment. So I let some of that water evaporate and the color gets stronger. So then I can do some of these darker details.
What about this up here compared to this? This is where you put layer upon layer.
And so the sky here, this is actually a dark color, and then I use water to blend it out so that it gets lighter towards the grass.
Was that person I heard speaking in the background?
That's my mom. She's helping me today. That's Miss Dee Dee.
How many subscribers do you have?
What?
How many subscribers do you have?
How many subscribers do I have? I have just a little bit over 5,000, but not quite 6,000 yet. I am not super popular. And if you guys have questions about YouTube, I would be happy to answer those. I'm going to do the drawing demonstration camera. And I'm going to do a figure drawing demonstration for this because knowing how to draw figures, whether you're drawing animals or people or objects, all of that is important when you're drawing comics. So the kind of process I use for drawing figures is something called constructive human anatomy. And all that really means is that we're putting together anything we draw with a series of basic shapes. So to be able to do this, you guys are going to need to know how, and I bet y'all already know how, to draw rectangles, triangles, circles. You're also going to need to know how to draw cylinders, so like a Coke can, cubes, so like a UPS box or a mailing box, spheres, like a ball, and that's going to be a little harder for me to demonstrate for you guys. And I think that's about it. Oh, wait a minute. Pyramids. And cones. And if you can draw these things, you can learn how to draw almost anything. So I will give you guys an example. A Christmas tree, right? It's just a cone and then a cylinder. Or you can even go simpler than that and you can do just a triangle and a rectangle. But if you're thinking about it like it's in the real world, in three-dimensional space, it's a cone and a cylinder. So you can start off by drawing your 3D shape, and then you can add details to make it look more like the real thing. So that's all that constructive drawing or constructive figure drawing is really, is just building up your shapes from simple, more basic shapes.
How are you so good at drawing?
I spend all of my free time drawing. I love to draw, and I like to draw things I see in real life, and I like to draw things from my imagination, and I draw in a sketchbook every single day. And if you guys draw every single day, by the time you're my age, you're going to be way better than me, I promise. You're going to be so good. And I'm not good at, Okay, I'm not good at drawing everything either. I have to look things up on my phone or on the computer all the time if I want to draw it right. So it's okay to look things up if you don't know how to draw them. Like if you guys ask me how to draw, we're going to say a truck because I'm not very good at drawing vehicles. Okay, I can do the basics. So I know a truck starts with a long rectangle. And then I know this far back, there's kind of a sloping shape. And the rectangle should be much longer. I know that also. And there's usually like this bit here and the side view mirrors and the rear view mirror. And I know it has 4 wheels. But for it to look good, like you guys could draw this truck. You guys could draw this truck right now. For it to look good, I'd have to look up a picture of a real truck and draw the things I see in the real truck for it to really look good. It is a toy truck. That's the type of truck it is. It's a block truck. It's a Lego truck. Can I draw your truck? A semi truck. I can try. I could draw a semi truck if I had a picture, or if I was holding a toy truck. I could draw a good semi truck then, but I gotta try and remember what a semi truck looks like. So it's what? A long rectangle, right? And then there's like a square, that would be the cab, and then a short rectangle, right? And then there's what? 2 wheels here, and then 2, let's see, I know it's an 18-wheeler, so we would have, because there's double wheels on each side, we would have 12 wheels, so there's probably like another set of wheels right here. And then there's like what? Like a little exhaust, usually right here, and the window here, and the door, and then sometimes they have like that other door thing going behind there. So if I wanted to draw this a little more realistically, I would have the long rectangle, and then I would have the shorter square, and then I'd have the little short rectangle and the headlights, and then we'd have the wheel, okay, that's a semi truck.
Julius, what's your question? I don't really what it is, but can you try going on to Okay.
What's up?
Our video got a little behind.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fixed now.
Good. Sometimes the internet is not the strongest here, so I apologize for that. I'm actually going to take a picture of the board and then I'm going to erase it. And that way you guys can have, I'll post this somewhere so you guys can reference this if you want to later on. Okay, so you can draw all kinds of things using these building blocks. So I'm going to draw a person, and one of the first things we should remember is that people come in different shapes. People come in all sorts of different shapes, but there's some consistency in the types of shapes that you see people in. And these shapes are all a representation of the torso. So from like the shoulders to the hips, that's what these shapes represent. So I'm going to go ahead and let me know if you guys can't see this color, because I can see it, but it doesn't always show up on camera. So we've got the rectangle, right? And then I'm going to do a triangle this way, and then a triangle this way, and then we're going to do the figure eight. I'm going to show you guys how to draw people on all of those shapes. So we'll start with the figure eight. You guys know how to draw stick figures, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys know I still draw stick figures every day? I do. I draw stick figures every single day because I use those to help me pose the figures I'm drawing. So drawing a stick figure is a great way to get started with drawing any person you're going to draw. Because they're really easy to pose. Everybody knows how to draw them. Everybody knows what you're drawing when you're drawing a stick figure. They all know you're drawing a person. So I hope you guys can kind of see how these basic shapes can be used to draw stick figures with a variety of body types. So usually when what happened? Oh, I can send you, I took a picture of it so I can send that to you guys. I'm sorry, I'm gonna draw something else for you though. And if you guys are drawing along, let me know and I'll just leave things up and explain stuff as I go along. Because I can't see you guys so I don't know what you're doing. So I'll walk you through this though, okay? So I usually start, if I'm drawing, let's say I'm drawing a guy. Let's say I'm drawing a man. I am going to start by drawing a rectangle for his torso. And the rectangle can be different sizes. So you can have tall, skinny rectangles. You can have more like a square. You can have all kinds of rectangles. Then I usually start by drawing in the rib cage. So I draw kind of an egg shape. And then I do a little line so that I know where his neck's gonna go. And I do an egg for his head. And you can do, just like with the rectangles, you can do kind of, you can do more tall and skinny heads, or you can do more rounded heads, or you can do kind of like football heads from Hey Arnold. You can do heads in all different kinds of shapes and sizes. Some people have big heads, some people have small heads. So after I have the head and the rib cage, I usually draw in what looks kind of like the axles on a toy truck, and that's going to be your hip bones. And then I start drawing in the stick legs. And then I draw triangles for feet. I do kind of a bow shape, like a bow and arrow, a bow shape for the collarbone that connects the shoulders, because when you guys lift one arm, the other arm tends to go down, so you can tell they're connected. And to help remind me that they're connected, I use a bow like that. And then I do stick arms with a joint for the elbows. And the same goes for the legs. I do the knees. So, I got a stick figure here. He's ready to go. I'm going to do stick figures for these two guys here. Summer camp means early mornings. Aha, I can zoom. Now you guys can see that a little bit better. Okay, so I have 3 different guys, and something that's going to come up as you guys progress in your drawing journey is you're going to see books and artists talking about how many heads tall someone is, and that is the measure of your head. You move it over to the side, and then you would count how many heads tall that person would be. So I'm going to figure out how tall this guy is right now. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 heads. What? They're a little behind. Oh, okay. I'm going to give the video a chance to catch up then. Let me know when I'm not standing there anymore.
We're still live. I think there's just a slight lag between the phone and the video, but we'll be fine. You guys good? Yeah. All right.
Are you guys keeping up with this? It's okay if you're not. I can draw something else for you.
You guys make sense to you guys? Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. If it doesn't, if you guys have any questions, please do let me know and I will figure something out. I'll show you guys something else. So this is generally how you would just draw kind of the start for any person. And different people have different body shapes. So if I wanted to draw his friend, who's a girl, I might start out with a similar rectangle, but have it going kind of like an hourglass. Or I might start with kind of a figure 8, or I might start with a circle. But from there on, it's pretty much the same, where I draw the egg, and I draw the truck wheels, and then I draw an egg at the top for her head, and the bow for her arms. And I draw the stick arms, and the stick legs, and the little triangles for her feet. And if I were to do it with the figure 8, it'd be the same. So I have the egg and another egg, the truck wheels, and then the stick legs, and then the triangles for the feet, the bow for her shoulders, and then the stick arms. And then the same goes for the oval. And then the truck wheels, and then the stick legs, and the triangles for the feet, and the stick arms. So other than changing which shape we start out with, which shape we begin with, when we draw anybody, it all uses kind of the same parts, the same formula. And let me know when you guys are ready to move on to the next step.
You guys ready to move on? Yeah.
the basics, we can do something more fun. We can start drawing cartoon characters. Do you guys want me to leave this up?
You don't have any paper.
And just let me know when you guys are ready. Awesome, fantastic. So, when you're drawing cartoon characters, it's pretty much the same stuff I showed you guys. You just change the proportions. You draw how big you draw certain things, or you change how big you draw certain things to suit the character. So, I am going to do one of my chibi drawings, so one of my cartoony kind of anime looking drawings for you guys, just to demonstrate. But this would be the proportions. So you know how I talked about the heads earlier? Well, the figure I drew here, she's 5.5 heads tall. When I drew her again in the cartoony style, I drew the head really big, so that changed the rest of her proportions a lot. So I'm gonna make a little bit of room. So, for when I'm doing cartoony drawings, I still start with, can you see what I'm drawing? Okay. I still start with a rectangle, but this time I do kind of a shorter rectangle. I still draw the egg for the rib cage because that helps me figure things out, and I still draw the truck wheels. Then I draw the head really big compared to the rest of the body, because even like Bugs Bunny, right, has a big head, or Steven Universe has a big head compared to his body. Now that's not every single character, because like Garnet from Steven Universe has a smaller face, but she's got a lot of hair, but she's really tall. So when you're doing cartoony stuff, it's okay. In fact, you ought to play with, you know, how big you draw the head versus how big you draw the body. So for my cartoony style, I draw really big heads, so I can draw these really excited cartoony faces. And what's fun about drawing in this style is I can draw people doing all kinds of things, especially if I have a photo to work from, because it helps me sort of figure out where everything goes before I've started putting in all the details and I've gotten really involved with the drawing. So after I've got my skeleton done, my stick figure done, I can start drawing in details and building out my character. So I'm going to draw my stick figure again. And then I'm going to switch to a different color, because you guys remember how at the beginning of our workshop I talked about drawing 3D shapes like cylinders and cones and pyramids and cubes? Well, that's what I use to kind of develop my character a little bit more. So, like the neck, for example, would be a cylinder, and the arms would be 2 cylinders. And then the legs would be cylinders as well. And I do this for everything I draw. If I'm drawing a cat, for example, I draw a cat sitting. I'm going to draw the head as a ball. What? Yeah. And then I'm going to do a couple of oblong circles to kind of figure out how I want to draw the body. And then, so I've got kind of a stick figure cat. Then I would use cylinders to kind of give this cat some shape, give this cat some mass. Yay! So that was a demonstration of how to do the front. The side and the back work really along these same principles. We just kind of rotate the shapes that we're drawing. So if I'm going to draw this figure here from the side, I have kind of a beanbag shape or like a curvy rectangle. Then I draw my egg shape from the side, and I draw my truck wheels from the side, my bow, my big round head because we're doing a cartoony drawing, my stick figure arms, my stick figure legs, my triangle feet, and then I would use other shapes, more 3D shapes to kind of flesh that out. So a cylinder for the neck and a sphere for the head. And cylinders for the arms and the legs. And that same rectangle kind of shape for the torso. And So here I have an example of how both of these would develop, how I would kind of flesh these out and develop these. So I've got my skeletal drawing, my stick figure drawing for both a more realistic figure and a more cartoony figure. Then I've got sort of my Lego building blocks version where I've, drawn cylinders for the arms and the legs, and I've drawn wedges for the feet. And you guys can see that whether or not I'm drawing someone who's more realistic or somebody who's more cartoony, it's all the same stuff. It's just what sizes you draw different things at, how big you draw the head or how long you draw the legs. And then after I've got that all figured out, I can start drawing in details like clothing or the faces or the hair. And for the faces on these and the hands, I sketch them out a little bit more with red. And I can show you guys how to draw faces in a couple of minutes. And when you're drawing hands, think of the hand kind of like a baseball home plate. So you've got like that trapezoid shape as the palm of your hand, and then you have your 4 fingers and your thumb coming out from it. So you can do anything starting with a stick figure drawing and then just kind of go from there. And doing the stick figure drawings help you sort of figure out where things go and what pose you want to draw it in. Now, if you guys I can't see you guys, so you guys gotta let me know if you're ready, but I'm going to erase these drawings here. I'm gonna leave these up and I'm gonna show you guys how to construct a face, if that's cool.
Guys ready for that? Yeah.
All right.
More paper. No, I am. I need a bit more. Yes, you need more paper.
You guys fill up those sheets of paper because that's the only way you're going to get good at drawing is filling as many sheets of paper as possible. Oh, that won't stay up.
It's time we have to bring some tape.
I think it's too thin. All right. So I'm going to. Please stay this. Nope. Oh, it won't stay. Okay, let me see if I can't find something to get the sketch I did for you guys to stay up. He wants to be stubborn. Okay, please stay. So, like I told you guys earlier, when we draw heads, we start with kind of an egg shape, right? So, we start, or an oval, we start with this here. So then, I like to draw my faces with a circle kind of in the middle, so you still have the egg and then you have the circle in the middle. And then, so when I draw that circle in the middle, it's really a sphere, it's really a ball, because your face is three-dimensional. It's not just flat. It's okay if you guys are practicing and you're learning and you're drawing flat faces. That's totally okay. But as you guys get older and as you guys practice, you're going to start thinking about the head more as like a round object that exists in the world. So this would be a front view of a face. This would be a side view of a face. And then the back of the head would really, you would mostly just see the round part of the head rather than the front part or the face. Because the face comes down lower than the back of the skull does. So we have kind of our three basic views: front, side, and back. So from this point, I'm going to start drawing the features of the face. So your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears. So when I draw a face, the first thing I do is I draw an imaginary eye right in the middle of the face. Well, really, the first thing I do, and you guys can see on some of them, is I draw a cross in the middle of the face. So, or like a crosshair. So in the halfway, in the middle point of the face going down, and in the middle of the face going to the side. And that helps me figure out where to place all the features. That's kind of my roadmap. So after I've done this, and I've got this all figured out, I go ahead and I draw an imaginary middle third eye, and then I draw two eyes, or two egg shapes on either side of that eye. Then halfway down from your eyes to the bottom of your circle, I make a mark. That's where the nose goes. And then halfway down, or rather where this circle ends, I make a mark, and that's where the mouth goes. And I can do that on the side view as well. So I'll draw like half an eye, because we're looking at it from the side, and then I'll draw a whole eye. Make a mark for the nose, and then make a mouth for the mark. And then this is the back of the head. So normally what you would see from the back of the head isn't a whole lot. So this is the area.
Why did you say make a mouth for a mark instead of a mark for a mouth?
Because sometimes my brain goes faster than my mouth does and I get confused. Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah.
It happens to me all the time. Thank you for asking me though. That way we can better understand what's going on. So if I ever say anything and you're confused by what I mean, please ask. So thank you very much. You did a good job. So yes, I made a mouth for a mark and a mark for a mouth. So this is just sort of the basic layout of where everything would go on the face. And I'm going to get a picture of that so when you guys are practicing later, you can see it. And I'm going to start drawing a face over here from start to finish, and I'm going to walk you guys through it. Let me make sure.
I'll steer you.
Yeah, would you?
You go where you want to go, and I'll move it.
Okay. And is the video caught up with the phone?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to draw somebody looking forward. So I draw a circle. I draw my crosshairs. I'm going to kind of sketch out the egg shape of the face so I'm thinking about it. I'm going to draw a line here, halfway between the eye line. This is where we're going to put their hair. I'm going to draw my invisible third eye. I'm going to draw my two real eyes. I'm going to do two larger circles around the eyes because that is your eye sockets. And at the top is where your eyebrows go. I'm going to make a mark for the nose. I'm going to make a mark for the mouth. So I've got kind of a basic blank face going on. Then, from the top of where the eyebrows go to the bottom of the nose, I'm going to draw, and I draw ears a couple different ways. You can just draw a C, or you can do kind of like a fancy C shape. Both of those will work. For ears, people draw ears all sorts of different ways, so I want you guys to experiment, and I want you guys to pay attention to how other people draw ears in your favorite cartoons, and practice drawing ears, eyes, noses, and mouths the way they do, so you guys can figure out what you like and how you like to draw ears. So for me though, I usually draw one of these two shapes. And I'm going to give them nice big ears so they can hear everything that's being said today. And then I usually will draw a little kind of circular shape for the chin. And different people have different shaped chins. So this one is just kind of how I'm thinking about drawing a chin sort of like line. All right, so we've got the basic road map for the face. I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to start drawing in all the details. So I draw the eyelids, and I'll do a sketch of an eye for you guys right now. So when I'm drawing eyes, I usually draw kind of a circular shape, right? Because your eyeballs are round. Then I draw a curvy lid for the eye like that. So that's the top of the eye, where you might have eyelashes, and then I draw a little slightly curved line for the bottom of the line, or bottom of the eye, and then I draw the crease of the eye coming down like that, and then I draw the iris of the eye. That's the colored part, and then the pupil is the black part of your eye. So the eye is a bunch of circles. And I'll draw a big shiny highlight like my favorite cartoons, and then I'll draw the pupil of the eye. So that's how I normally will draw eyes. But I want you guys to experiment with drawing eyes all sorts of different ways, because there are lots of ways to draw eyes. You can do kind of just like a little dot like this. You can do a dot with just one lid on top. You can draw a circle like this and then fill it in like that. What is y'all's favorite cartoon? One of you name a cartoon that you really, really like.
I don't know.
You don't know? What? I'm sorry? Nathan Hale Hazardous Jail?
It's a graphic novel.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I've been a TV cartoon because I might have seen it, and then I can show you guys how to draw the eyes from it. You're reading more comics than I'm reading.
Oh. I have no idea. The way I do my eyes now, it looks like he's looking in two directions at the same time.
Two directions at the same time? Is it going out or in?
Is he cross-eyed or is there pointing out? No, they're pointing they're pointing out. Like the circle, like over here,
Like a chameleon? Have you guys seen chameleon lizards where they have these like triangular kind of eyes? Like this is the skin and then this is the eyeball. So like their eyes are going in two different directions. Like that, like a chameleon.
Yeah.
Well, while y'all are thinking about cartoons, I'm going to keep drawing my face here.
For some reason, mine reminds me of a camel. Yeah.
And then when I'm drawing noses, so So people's noses are usually kind of like triangles, and either they can be short triangles or tall triangles, little triangles or big triangles, but most noses are shaped like a triangle or kind of like a diamond. So I will draw kind of a little triangular shape to help me figure out the nose, and then I'm going to decide what kind of facial expression I want to give them. So I'm going to draw them with a nice big happy smile because it's summertime and they don't have to go to school and they get to draw comics all day, which sounds pretty awesome to me.
Reminds me of a camel. Reminds me of a stupid looking camel. Sure.
Alright, so I have a very scary looking basic face sketched in. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch in the hair. And when I draw hair, I usually think of hair as like big cartoony masses or clumps. So I don't draw individual hair strands. I draw like, if I were drawing like my bangs, I would draw the swoop like this and then the swoop like that. And then the parts coming down from the side and then going around. So kind of like, wow, it's bad on that side. Like this, it's really bad. But that's the basics of how I think about hair, is I think about them in bigger masses. Because I have kind of a cartoony drawing style.
Well, now this is going to be a camel.
Okay.
Very weird looking.
That's right, you're making it work. You're making it work. I believe in you. Draw that camel.
It's a camel potato.
It's a fashion camel. All right, so are you guys still drawing?
Yeah.
You guys want me to give you a little, do y'all want me to,
Before we go.
huh? Do you want me to give you guys a little bit of time, or do you guys want me to show you some of my inking toys?
Inking!
All right, that's what y'all were probably waiting for. All right, give me camel a couple seconds, get things switched over.
Wait, why does that look like a pharaoh like you drew?
Why does it look like a what?
Like, what you drew, the hair makes it look like the same pharaoh's layer.
Yeah, I know. That's because when I draw longer hair on girls, sometimes I'll draw it coming out a little bit so you can see the hair more. Because, like, I have short hair, so I can't demonstrate. But some people, when they have their hair goes just straight back and you can barely see their hair at all.
Yeah, like if I put my hair under my chin.
So I'm going to need you to help me out by moving the
Tell me
camera
where you wanted to point.
down here.
When I get home, I want to copy this just so I can put different hairstyles. Like, like when I get this house on Friday, I just
If you don't mind, we can just take the phone out and you can hold it.
Okay.
That might be easiest.
I'll cover it up.
So what are you guys using to ink your comics? You ready?
Whenever you are.
Okay, can you come around from behind me?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Over your shoulder?
Yeah, over my shoulder. Okay, guys, these are my inking toys, and I'm going to explain what I've got. So the first thing I have is a heavier paper, kind of like cardstock. This is a paper called Bristol. And Bristol is nice because if you guys have ever tried inking on light paper, like printer paper, you know how the ink gets the paper all wet and it starts to tear. This is designed to handle lots of water and lots of ink. So this is a really good paper for this kind of stuff. But you can also use inexpensive watercolor paper, like I got this at Walmart, or other types of Bristol paper as well. And what I normally do is I use my computer and I print out a sketch I've done earlier, and I do it in this kind of blue thing because after I ink it, when I scan it, I can take it into Photoshop and I can change the contrast on it so I can make the whites whiter and the blacks blacker, and that makes that makes these blue lines basically disappear. So they're still on the real piece of paper, but they're not on the digital piece of paper anymore. So I have some different inking toys here. I have one of my favorites. This is a type of brush pen, but it has a really, really small nib on it, and it lets me do really, really thin lines and then thicker lines, or I can go from thick to thin. I have another brush pen, very similar, but this one is waterproof because I do watercolor comics. And that one is drying out. I have a technical pen. So this comes in, it has different size tips, but each tip, the marker can only do that size really. And I also have old-fashioned dip pen nibs, and people still use these, as well as really, really, really nice hair brushes. And that's what a lot of the older cartoonists will use. So I'm going to show you guys how to use the dip pens a little bit. I've got a couple of different inks with me. So would you guys rather see me do it with black ink or with blue ink?
Black.
All right. Oh.
Black. Okay. If you want blue, raise your hand. If you want black, raise your hand. All right. Black is the winner.
Okay, I'll use blue for the other one. So this is India ink. India ink has something called shellac in it, which makes it so that it doesn't just rub off the paper. So it makes it more permanent, and that's what people used to use way before they would use like Sharpies and things like that. So I've got my nib. I dip it in water first, just kind of prime it. I dip it in my ink. I can do thick lines, I can do thin lines, and eventually it runs out of ink because it only holds as much ink is going to be on the nib. So I will have to redip it. And when you're inking with something like this, it's really good to have a scratch piece of paper so you can kind of, test out and make sure you got enough ink on your nib. And there's loads of different types of nibs out there. There's super flexy ones. There's super solid ones that don't flex at all. You have really tiny ones like this. This is called a crow quill because they used to make inking stuff, inking tools out of quills. You guys have seen quills before, like feather quills, like in old-timey drawings. So this is what people used to use to ink and to write with a really long time ago, and some people still use that. And you want to make sure you clean off your nibs really well after you finish using them, because if you leave ink on it, it can ruin the nib. And you want to make sure you cap your ink when you're done using it, because I promise, even if you're super careful, it's going to spill. So we have blue ink here. And being careful not to get this table on borrowing dirty. So I've got here, this is Kalinsky sable. So Kalinsky sable really comes from a type of squirrel in Russia, and it's like the nicest kind of hair you can get for painting and inking. So I got this through Art Snacks actually, but you can get these kind of brushes from places like Dick Blick or Jerry's Artorama. This is something though that you want to wait before you learn before you start using a brush to ink, because it takes a lot of practice and a lot of control. So I would say start with the pen like this, because they're inexpensive and it's okay if you ruin them. Then when you get good at using this, get one of the brush pens, and that'll help you build up control. And then start using the crow quills, and then you can learn how to use the brush, because the brushes are kind of expensive too. You can't get a brush like this at Walmart or Michael's. Not a nice brush like this. But this is able to do thin lines and really thick lines. And you want to clean out your brush really, really, really good, because you don't want the ink drying in it, because it'll ruin the brush. So when you're using tools like this, you have to take super good care of them. It's almost like having a pet, because they're expensive and you want them to be able to last. You want to be able to use them for a long time. So those are a few of my favorite inking materials. I'm going to do a little inking demo for you guys. And I'll use different nibs. And if you guys have any questions, just let me know. I'm happy to answer them. I'm going to use this as my scrap piece of paper. And sometimes when I have a printout like this, I'll go over it with a pencil and kind of tighten it up, clean things up, change some of the lines. And it's okay to turn the paper as you need to so that you can get the best angle possible. You got to do what's best for your hand and the movements your hand is the most comfortable making. And I'm being really light with this. It's not like I'm trying to cut the paper. I'm not trying to push the ink onto the paper. I'm mostly just touching the nib to the paper and drawing like you would with like a pen. So if you guys make a mistake when you're inking with something like this, you got to let it dry fully. Can you pull in? Like really tight. So you guys see how wet that ink is? I'm going to try to get it to capture. It's a little fuzzy. But it's really wet because when you're using a dip pen like this, you're putting down a lot of ink and you're putting down a thick amount of ink. So it's going to take a while to dry. So if I mess up, what I usually do is I finish inking the whole thing, I let it dry for 24 hours, and then I come back with one of these brushes and I use something called gouache, and this is like an opaque white paint. I either use gouache or I use a white gel pen, and I go over the area that I messed up, and then I re-ink it. So it's really important to be patient with yourself. It's okay if you make mistakes because you can fix them. The biggest mistake you can actually make isn't messing up a drawing, it's getting impatient and frustrated with yourself, because then you're not making good choices. You can definitely use whiteout if you make a mistake too. Or you can use like those whiteout tapes that they sell at the store. When I was in high school and I was making comics, I used whiteout and whiteout tape all the time to fix my mistakes. The only reason I don't use whiteout anymore is because it will turn yellow on top of my watercolors, which isn't really what I want it to do. So you see I'm turning the paper all over the place. That's so I can get the best angle, so I can do the best job inking.
Is there any particular way you store like the inside out or from the inside?
When I'm inking, I'll usually start with the face first because as I'm inking, my hand gets tired. And if I'm gonna mess up, I don't want it to be on the face. So I start with the face because my hand is the freshest and the least likely to make, to shake or to spill ink or make a mistake. And then I work from the face outward.
Okay, we've got just a few minutes left, but do you guys have any questions that you want to ask Becca here at the end? How much does it take to do your job?
How much time does it take or how much money does it take?
How much money does it pay?
Does it pay? Oh, honey, if you want to make money, comics is not a good life. Comics is a poor life. Okay, so I do lots of different things in order to make money. I do workshops like this. I do workshops in person. I'm working on teaching professionally because I want to teach high school kids how to draw comics too. So I'm working on that. I also do freelance art. So you guys go to Dollar Tree sometimes, right?
I guess.
You guess? Okay, fine. Do you like Lego?
Yeah.
Do you like Lego TMNT?
Yeah, Lego is fun. It's just Lego. Yeah.
Well, I've done some of the comics on the back of some of those Lego boxes. And that pays $15 an hour. And, that might seem like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money because I have a kitty cat and I pay for his bills and I have an apartment and I have to pay for that and I buy my own food and my own art supplies. So even though it seems like a lot of money, it goes really fast. And I also do like comic and cartoon conventions and I sell my comics there, but I might make like $1,000 in the weekend, which sounds pretty good, but I have to pay to table and I'm paying for the hotel room and I'm paying to travel there. So
sometimes you don't make that much.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't make $1,000. Sometimes I might make $200 or I might make not even that. So there's a lot of variability in how much money I actually will make from something.
So some that people wrote down yesterday, how long does it take to write a whole comic book like the 7-inch Kara?
So when I do comics, I have a synopsis. So a synopsis is like a short version of the story. I have a synopsis for the entire story, and then I go chapter to chapter, and I break those down into scripts. So and then after I've written the script for one chapter, I will do the thumbnails for it, and then I'll do the rough drawings for it, and then I'll do the watercolors. So I don't actually sit down and write a whole story at one time. Whoa, see, that's a mistake. That's a big boo-boo. What I'm going to do about that is I'm actually going to go work in another area. I'm actually also going to use a little piece of paper towel. No! That can be fixed. It will not be fixed on camera because I have to let it dry all the way, but this can all be fixed. But I'll show you how to fix this boo-boo here. So I've got a piece of paper towel, and I'm going to use the paper towel, just barely dipping it into the ink to soak up the extra ink. And that way it'll dry faster. So I have to let all that dry before I can fix any of it. And I got to clean off my pen because it's going to get all over my hands. And if it gets on my hands, it's going to get on my drawing. So, I guess I would say if you were going to sit down and you were going to write a comic, I would say start by thinking about the whole story and how you want the story to begin, how you want the middle of the story to be, and what you want the ending to be. And then once you have that figured out, figure out how you get to each of those points. What's going to happen to your characters that gets them to the middle? What's going to happen to your characters that gets them to the end? And writing a script is the easiest part for me for doing comics, and it's the shortest part for doing comics because I already know, my characters, I know what they like to do, I know their personalities, and I also know what they want from life and what they want from their friendship. So for me, it's just listening to my characters and thinking of situations I can put them in to see how they're going to react and what they're going to do. So if
we need to go to lunch, so everybody say thank you to Becca. Thank you.
No problem, guys. I'm gonna keep the recording going and finish inking this. And then is it okay with you guys if I share this to my YouTube channel for other people to watch?
Yeah. All right. Wait, will our voices be on it? Just your voices, yeah.
Somewhat, yeah. I don't know how well people can hear them.
That makes me money.
Send you money? If I make money from this, I'll send you money. But I'm not going to make money from this.
Yeah, we don't get money. We don't get money from this. Big money. No. All right, well, we need to go to lunch. Everybody say bye. Bye. Thank you so much, Becca.
No problem. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today and letting me show you some stuff.
Okay, you want to turn the phone on?
Yeah, but I'm going to keep recording until I finish this, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Plus, it's raining, so I'm not.
Is this recording your voice?
Yes, it is. It's recording your voice, too. No, it's less creepy if you just talk. But this was only shared right now to that group. I'm going to put it public later, but I didn't want people I didn't know asking a bunch of questions at this time since this was a group for them. But I would like to that's why I bought the webcam, is I want to start doing streams for just anybody who has questions about drawing to be able to come ask.
You're going to have to get the kinks worked out.
Yeah. Well, part of it is I think the internet connection was kind of
inconsistent.
Yeah, not helping.
No, what's with the dots?
Oh, that's her necklace.
Okay.
So it's like a bead or a chain necklace, and when it dries I could go in with a little bit of whiteout to add just a little bit of a highlight so it looks like metal. And then if you're when you're inking, you want to think about whether you're inking for color, like if you're going to put color on it, or if you're inking for black and white. Because if you're inking for black and white, you're going to spend more time doing details in black and white. You're going to fill more things in.
When you put your color on top, that doesn't make the ink wet again and make it run?
It depends on the type of ink.
Smear?
So with India ink like this, I can do watercolor on top of this, but I can't do alcohol marker because the alcohol in the markers dissolves the shellac.
Right, okay, and then it makes it kind of smear.
Oh boy, does it, yeah. These are inking better than I thought they would, considering their cheap speedball nibs I got from Michael's in a hurry last night. That was fun. I hope I didn't...
What made you decide to go to the nibs? Because I know you didn't use them for a long time.
I like nibs. I didn't know how to use them. So, like, at UNO, right, like... I took drawing classes, but none of the professors were
Talked
pen and
about.
ink kind of professors. They were painting or graphite kind of people. So none of my professors used nibs, and it wasn't until I went to SCAD that I learned how to use nibs. Now you have YouTube, which will show you, it's like a magic mirror. It'll show you anything you want to see and a whole bunch of stuff you don't.
Yeah.
But when I was getting my education, none of this was a thing because I was looking up things like this and not getting anything. And that's what made me want to do these kind of videos too, is I wanted other people to have this
What you didn't
information.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you were still more fortunate than a lot of people before you because you could go to the
A
internet
school. Oh.
and you go to the internet and look and do some tutorials.
Yeah.
And 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, you might have had to go to books or videos.
Oh man. And then if you were really lucky back then, you could find someone else in your local area who was kind of interested in what you did, and
Right.
you guys could kind of critique each other and help
Right.
each other. But that was in a place like St. Charles Parish, people might have been interested in doing that, but some of them were so shy about talking about it that that was back then. It seems like now.
They really weren't sure what kind of response they were going to get.
Yeah.
If it was going to be positive or negative.
Another.
So how do you think this lesson turned out?
I hope it went well. I don't know because I couldn't see their faces. And when I teach, a lot of what I do is based on like me watching their faces and their body language, and then adjusting the lesson based on that. Because they were being good. They were, they weren't being disruptive. They weren't asking off the wall questions, anything like that. But I'm sure they were told ahead of time to be polite.
Or maybe they're just,
I hope they enjoyed it. I hope it was useful for them.
very interested, so they wanted to hear what you had to say.
And you can see it's kind of making the paper buckle a little bit. It's making the paper wet. So
But this kind of paper can deal with that, right?
it can, but normally what I would do is step away for 5 minutes because like the ink is kind of pooled on the paper just to let it dry because I have a bad tendency of dragging my hand through stuff.
How long does it take for it to dry?
It depends on the humidity outside, just like with watercolor. So today it might never dry.
So how do you transport it if it never dries or if it's not?
You leave it until it's dry or you give it up.
That means we have to stay at the library
No,
until it dries?
I may throw it away if it's not going to dry. But look, there's already areas that are drying.
Yeah.
I'm not so attached to this piece. I just wanted to finish doing the demonstration. If it was really dry, I would, like dry outside, I would let this dry and then show people how to do the corrections. Because they're not hard. It's just all of it is patience. Oh, see it dripped. All of this is patience and knowing.
But you can come back later
Yeah.
to this video and add the corrections, right?
No,
You can't?
nah. I can do a follow-up video.
Yeah, okay.
All of art I've found is knowing your order of operations and being patient.
Well,
It's-
so if you're not patient, this is probably not a good field
Well,
to
I'm not a
learn to.
patient person myself.
Well,
So
so you
what
have
I
to
do is I
learn
work.
patience.
Yeah, you can learn. It's great for learning patience. And there's also forms of art that are more immediate than this. Like acrylics can be more immediate than this. Or sculpting can be more
Yeah,
immediate.
yeah.
So even if you're an impatient person, I think there's some form of art or craft for everybody. But inking is very peaceful
Yeah,
because you have to control your
it's
breathing.
like tracing things, Like when you're a kid, when you're tracing something, it's kind of something that you can do without a
kinda
lot of
zone out.
thought. You can let your mind drift as you're doing it, so it doesn't encompass all of your attention. And that in itself is kind of relaxing.
When I'm inking for comics, I have to come if I'm having a bad day, I have to leave that day behind me because like you can't have shaky hands.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. Some people's art style is all about that, but I can't
Yeah.
have shaky hands in
Yeah.
ink. So it's also really good for like practicing letting things go, not letting things get to you as much. What I would really like to do one day, I think, is figure out ways that I can use comics and comic techniques to do kind of behavioral therapy, or as an option for that. Because like when I was teaching at East Broad, for example, a lot of these kids came from really sad homes, and when we were doing the comics portion, I told them they could do comics on whatever they wanted to do. They could do comics about their lives. They could do comics about fictional characters, like whatever you want to do. And it was such a great outlet for some of these kids who had been told that when you get to school, you can't talk about your home life, really. That's not what you're in school for.
Yeah.
So this was like a good outlet for some of these kids some of them, like this one little boy's house caught on fire, and he lost everything, and he was living with his grandmother, but she was really sick, and she didn't have the ability to really do a lot for him. It was just like a really hard time for him because he only had like one outfit, one set of clothes, because they didn't have money to buy him new stuff, and some of the kids were picking on him for wearing the same thing every day. Right. Like this little 9-year-old boy had this really sad life.
He had these big problems.
And the only reason I found out about this is because he did a comic about it. And yet he did a really good job. But it was a way for him to kind of process some of these feelings in, a positive. When I say positive, I don't mean the content has to be positive.
Right. He could talk about it, and he could explain it the way he wanted to explain it. And it wasn't like people were saying, oh, that's stupid, or, they could finish his product. And it was for him.
Yeah, and what's not funny, haha, funny, sad, is we sent all of the comics they made for their language arts class to show, you know, and his homeroom teacher, she didn't know this had happened to him. Yeah. So it also kind of changed.
You don't talk about your home.
Yeah.
You don't talk about your home life.
It changed how she was
Perceived
treating him.
Yeah,
Because he's having a lot of trouble. He
Probably wasn't doing as well in
class.
school.
He wasn't doing his homework.
Right.
Because he didn't
it
have
was
a
all he
home
could do
anymore.
It was all he could do to get out of bed in the morning.
So, thinking about this little guy, it's gonna make me cry. But it was really
real life
sad
problems
and fulfilling to be able to help this little dude talk about what was going on, what was on his mind.
What was in his life, what was ruling his life at that particular time.
Yeah. And I don't think I have
it says battery power 15%, charge your phone.
I have the charger over there, but I'm almost done with this.
Okay. As long as you know that you only have 15%. Is this supposed to be two-dimensional?
Kind of. If it goes over the front of the book.
I saw that. Oh, okay, yeah, that's right, she holds on to it. Rebecca couldn't afford paper clips, so she made her an extra hand.
It wasn't that I couldn't afford paper clips. I didn't think about using a paper clip for it. And another thing I really like about comics is you can make comics on printer paper with a ballpoint pen. You can. Just because I choose not to doesn't mean that's not.
Well, look what how your dad used to do it. He used to sketch it on anything that.
Yeah, anything.
Anything that was free. Anything that was available. He'd sketch things on napkins at lunch or
even
dinner.
People who can afford better do that.
Yeah.
Because there's something really freeing about the fact that you're doing this on a piece of disposable paper. So, if it doesn't turn out good, who cares? Okay, so I would let this dry fully, and then in a follow-up video, I'm going to show you guys how to do corrections. So, thank you guys so much for watching this. If you're interested in having me do a Skype or live stream workshop with your library, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I love doing these sort of things, and I like working with kids. My rates are really quite affordable, and I'm willing to negotiate with what your library or your school can offer. So I have lots of other free inking and drawing tutorials here on this channel. I recommend you guys check out my advanced inking techniques playlist And I think I have an easy art tutorials for kids playlist as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you again really soon when I show you guys how to do the corrections on this piece. And I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. Bye guys. What?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah. And then